everybody. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. All right, everybody. So today is Pillowcases 2.0. Last week we did a basic pillowcase class showing you how to make cool custom gifts. Anyway, so today we're going to up the pillowcase game. So if you're someone who has an embroidery machine, you're going to be thrilled with today. If you don't own an embroidery machine, I am making a slightly different pillowcase than last time. Last time we added in sort of a 1-inch floating border or flat piping or whatever you want to call it. So be sure you tune in and go back to the first video. All right, so I'm gonna take you through a couple things. I've pre-cut the pillowcase for today's endeavor because that's in the other video. I'm just gonna show you where I started. I've got a 5x7 hoop here, and it's loaded with a piece of the Ultra Clean and Tear. And then I have another extra piece here, and I'll show you what I'm gonna do with that when it's time. I've got my cuff down here. You might recognize that from the first video. This one isn't sewn like we did in the first video. It's just been pressed in half, and then I had to press it in half again because, let me tell you why. What I've done, so you didn't have to wait around, is I took a piece of 12 by, with the fabric, it's about 42 inches, and I fused that fusible woven to the entire piece, so it's all the way through there. What that does is gives this a lot of body and a bit of strength, so it's going to be happy to accept what I'm about to do to it. But before I get ready to put it in the hoop, what I want to talk about is marking this. So as I said, I've pressed it in half, so I now have approximately a 6-inch cuff. I have the middle mark pressed in here. I want to find the middle mark this way, so I'm actually going to fold this in half, but you see on this end here I'm going to overlap it by about a 1/4 inch because I have to accommodate the seam allowance. So I'm going to measure that out. Then this will give me the middle this way, and I'm just going to use my iron. And the reason why is sometimes getting the marks out later are a problem. So there I found the middle of the cuff left to right. I also need the middle north-south, east-west, north-south for when the pillowcase has the cuff hanging off of it. So I'm actually also going to bring this down, and I'm only going to bring down one layer, and I'm going to bring it down to the halfway part here and then extend by a 1/4 inch, and then that's going to give me crosshairs. Hopefully you can see that in the light there. So now I have a north-south mark and an east-west mark with a center point. So what that is the center of that cuff. So what that's going to do is make the cuff kind of one-sided when we're done. In my hoop, I want to center that crosshair. So I'm going to fold it back in half this way. And then what we're looking for is there's a mark on the hoop top and bottom here that are the halfway points, and then there's the halfway this way. So I'll be able to line that up right in the hoop, straight as can be. If you want to use a sticky stabilizer here, you could. You could also have sprayed the back of this with 505. You'll know where to spray because this is the area that will go in your hoop. And so you'll just spray in this general area. You don't need to do the whole back, which people who are just starting out tend to spray the whole darn thing. We only want to spray this general area and kind of in that 5x7 shape of the hoop, and then it'll only be sticky there. Got my serger set up. I got my sewing machine set up for embroidery. I'm going to just embroider Sweet Dreams. I'm going to put this on. It's supposed to be about a 10-minute embroidery. While it's embroidering, we're going to just have a conversation. I am just going to put my hoop on. I'm going to make sure that I have full bobbin. The fabric might look white in the video, but it's just a bit off-white, the print that we're using. So it looks maybe white and aqua on the screen, but it's a bit off-white. We found a beautiful aqua fabric to go with it, so I'm going to use a slightly off-white thread that matches. Alrighty. So now I've got the thread I want on there. I'm going to put my hoop on. I'm going to send my design to embroider. I've put the design in this way. And so if you remember the baseline, so that's the bottom of the lettering. The baseline has to be towards the bottom of the cuff. So we'll make sure we get that loaded in correctly. And I'm going to put this cuff in the way I showed you, that it fits nice and straight with the raw edge, even with the straight edge there. The needle position on this machine right now is in the middle of the design, and I can drop my needle and it lands right in the center of those crosshairs. So I know I'm right where I need to be. I'm going to do one more thing that's a bit odd. If I had basting function on this machine, I would baste it in there for safety. But that extra piece of stabilizer I had floating about, I know for a fact that these heavy, beautiful satin stitch monograms and alphabets are a problem. And I find hooping 2 pieces of stabilizer super annoying. In the hoop, I got one ultra clean and tear, and then I've got another chunk. And even though it's on the bottom, we kind of call it floating, the stabilizer. And then, to be annoying, we're gonna float the fabric. And this time it will be on top. So I'll just line up my cuff again. I'm gonna start that embroidery going. I never pin inside the hoop. That's a really bad idea. But I am just going to put a pin outside my hoop at the back end here, just to help keep that up there. Typically when you float something in your machine, you shouldn't really walk away. You want to make sure that none of these edges get flipped in or dropped in, but I'm pretty confident in that this will lay there pretty nicely. So this is going to take a few minutes according to my counter, 10 of them. All right, so I've already made the cuff, as I said. I just used the serger again, but remember in the other video I show you how to use the serger or your sewing machine if you don't happen to have the option of a serger in your sewing room. I've got the tops of the bows sewed closed, because remember we talked last time about sew the brains closed and leave the feet open. And pillowcases are kind of an interesting thing. The cuff is, when you're trying to figure out how big to make a pillowcase, and if you have to measure a pillow because you don't know what size it is, the pillow is the size of the sack. The cuff is extra beyond the end. So if you're trying to figure out what size a queen pillow is or king, just know that with the fabric, the way I taught you to cut in the first video, is good for king pillows, queen pillows, smaller pillows, but the length is what you change for pillows, because a king size bed will be a longer pillowcase to reach across the bed. Queens will be a little shorter. Twins might be a little shorter than that. But the general instructions that we give you in our pillowcase kits, or what you get from watching this video, the sack width is good for all of them. The length is what changes in pillows. Now, if you don't like the idea of using pins, which we did use in the other video, with even on a serger with some warnings about being super careful, we can do a couple other things. I've got a good crease in this center here, so I know where the halfway point is on this pillowcase. And I have a seam allowance on this side, so I know where the other half of the pillowcase is. Now, in the other video, I put these two together, then I put a pin over here. What if you don't want a pin because you're a serger person and you don't want to worry too much about that? You can actually put a little notch in there. So often I'll fold stuff and just take a little tiny V. That's going to be not as deep as the seam allowance. So I know that the serger is going to be about a good 1/4 of an inch, and that's only about 1/8 of an inch deep. So you can do that kind of notching and line up your notches. You can see it's a really heavy satin stitch, and there is a little bit of distortion. Gluing this in or basting this in would also be your friend to help eliminate some of this. So I did sweet dreams as 2 different words. So the sweet is done, but I'll have to hit go again to get dreams to stitch out. And you can see in the screen that to make this as big as possible in the hoop I was going to use, I dragged the sweet down to the bottom and pushed dreams up to the top. You just got to know where your baseline is. So, all right, so dreams is nearly done. Yay. There we go. You hear the music shortly. You want to start removing the stabilizer 1 layer at a time. You don't want to, if you have 2 layers of stabilizer, you don't want to yank both at once. The fabric will be really annoyed. Often I use my screwdriver to get in and take the little bits out of the middle there. You can see the double layer where it's stuck. So I usually use this little screwdriver. If you own a Bernina, you'll recognize it. But we sell the screwdriver separately because it's such a handy tool. We can kind of score the stabilizer, and I use it like a pair of tweezers. I find tweezers though aren't my friend, but just this little sharp screwdriver. Not sharp enough to damage your fabric, but certainly sharp enough to break up some stabilizer. And then this stabilizer, which is still in the hoop, I don't actually even need to take it out of the hoop to break that away. Remove that pin I had in there. Pop that out. See, look at that. Easy peasy. But to get the its and bits out, just use my screwdriver to kind of get under there. Use it as a lever, the other end of a tweezer, and look, it's lickety split. This is how I remove my stabilizer. I get often asked, do I need to get all the stabilizer out of there? No. This Ultra Clean and Tear breaks down in the wash, and it will just break free. But it'd be like a tissue paper tissue that you left in your coat pocket. It would kind of be a little bit linty, but it does break down and go away. And because it's on the inside of the cuff, it's not going to leave gross lint all over your laundry. But there we go. Mostly gone. I'm not going to torture myself trying to pick it out of the teeniest places. Now, this says MSR on it for my sewing room, and on this end we stitched in and embroidered in OESD press cloth. When you want to press embroidery, you press it from the back into the OESD press cloth, and it really helps. And I'd like to get rid of some of those crosshairs so that they're not there later, because what if I want to put this in a gift bag, or this is the gift bag at birthday parties tonight. So a heavy duty steam into the press cloth. You want to give it a second to cool. And I don't know if you can, probably not, you probably can't see very well given it's kind of white on white, but a lot of those weird little wrinkles are gone. Now I just want to get rid of the crease I put in, which if it doesn't come out with the steam of the iron, it will come out in laundry, so I'm not too terribly worried. So just give that a second to cool, because it's important to let hot steamy things cool. If you don't let them cool, when you pick it up, you wrinkle it and distort it again. All right, so look. Those wrinkles that we were starting to see are mostly gone. I could probably use a little longer pressing, but I don't want to keep you all night. Alrighty, so now I'm sneaking over to my serger. Alright, so the cuff wasn't serged together like it was in the first video, so I'm going to do that now. These pieces were all cut to size before you got here, because all that's in the other video, and you can pick it up in there. Alrighty, so grab the case. The important thing is to know that you get it on right. The biggest mistake we made when we were in a hurry was putting the cuff on inside out. So right side out, make a plan to put it on correctly. So I'm just going to reach in here and put that down around the pillowcase so I don't screw up sewing them together. And then I'm going to go and serge this tube together. Alright, so I want to talk about stitching this, because I've got that beautiful cuff on here, and this looks funny to me. And the way your pillowcases were sewn together a few years back, there would have been a cuff. It would have been sewn on one side of this, then the other side would have been turned under and stitched in place on fancy things that could have been done by hand even. So what I want to do is I want to make it look like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the seam allowance under here towards the cuff, and then I'm going to top stitch here just on the edge of the aqua with the seam allowance the other way. It wants to, due to the weight and the bulk, it wants to go up towards the sack, but I'm going to force it down to the cuff. Hope that makes sense. All right, so I have to change the foot here from embroidery to sewing. I'm going to start on a side of the cuff just to kind of get my bearings, which is right here. So as I'm going to go along, I'm going to use my fingernail and I'm going to reach under here and see the seam allowance. I'm going to just force it over this way. And then I'm going to top stitch. Turn my speed down, but just tucking as I go. Tuck and roll, tuck and roll, tuck and roll. Take that out. So now you see how that looks. It's much tighter and tidier. And it looks like the old-fashioned cuffs where they used to tuck and turn them. And in my opinion, it's a beautifully embroidered pillowcase, custom to whoever you were making it for. There you go. So this is a 2-color pillowcase, where the video the other day was the one with the extra bit of piping in there, and in that one I sewed the top entirely different because we had to make nice for the piping. And so this one has that beautiful cuff finish, and if you could see it in person, you would see how elegant that finish is. And this is the elegant finish on the cuff, not the hot dog finish. Where the hot dog finish, the raw edge comes out to here, where all of that is hidden inside here. And it's not that much harder to do. All that schmuck's up there. The cuff, you can see there's the raw ends are hidden way up inside here. The seam allowance of the pillowcase is hidden way up in there. And even if I didn't go in and trim that serging back, there's no dangly tail hanging out. There's no way to do a nice job with the hot dog, in my opinion. But if I can give you a good alternative, I think that's fair. So there you go. Anyway, you guys, be kind. I know most of you are so kind. You've been so kind to us. And be safe. And you know, today, be the awesome people you are. And I'll see you tomorrow. See you guys later.